Hi, I am Mr. Crocker, and today we're going to talk about converting time. So we already talked about going from like yards to feet and feet to inches, and you can do the same thing with other measurements, like measurements of time. So today we're going to be dealing with hours, minutes, and seconds. Okay, and just to make sure it's clear, like hours are the biggest unit. Inside of an hour, there are 60 minutes. So it takes 60 minutes to make an hour. And then inside of a minute, there are 60 seconds. So it takes 60 seconds to make a minute. Okay, 60 seconds to a minute, 60 minutes to an hour. So you really just need to understand that it's 60, right? And you need to understand that hours are bigger than minutes and minutes are bigger than seconds. So we talked about these two kinds of problems last time as well, big to small and small to big. And we talked about how if you're going from a big unit, like let's say a dollar, and you're changing that into smaller units, maybe pennies, you're going to end up with more units, right? So if I go with $1 and change it into pennies, I have 100 pennies. So my number got bigger. It went from 1 to 100. So that's when you multiply. Big to small is when you multiply, because when you break the big unit into smaller units, your number gets bigger, and multiplication does that. Okay, the opposite is true when you go from small to big. So if I take 100 pennies into a bank, I'm going to walk out with $1. Well, my number got a lot smaller, and division does that. Division will make your number smaller, right? So when you're going from small to big, like it might be seconds to minutes or minutes to hours, that's when you divide. When you're going from big to small, like hours to minutes or minutes to seconds, then you multiply, because you would expect that as you go down into smaller units, the number gets bigger. And as you go up into bigger units, the numbers will get smaller if you have the same amount. Okay, so here we go. Remembering that our fact is 60. It's always 60. So 3 hours equals how many minutes? Well, minutes are bigger than hours, right? Minutes are bigger than hours. I'm saying that backwards because I wanted you to be very confused. No, I don't. But hours are bigger than minutes. I'm going from a big unit to a small unit. So this is like $3 is how many pennies? Okay, it's going to be a lot of pennies. So I'm going to be multiplying, and the number, let's use a different color than black. The number is 60. So it's just 3 times 60. And in case you're not used to multiplying by multiples of 10, it's really just the same as 3 times 6. So 3 times 6 is 18, and then I add that 0, 180. So 3 hours would be 180 minutes. And that makes sense on its face, because I can just say, well, I know an hour is 60 minutes. So this is really the same as 60 plus 60 plus 60, or 60 times 3. Okay? It's not that hard. 20 minutes into how many seconds now? Okay, so, we could think of this, if hours are the dollar, then maybe minutes are like a quarter or a dime. Okay, so I've got 20 of these dimes, and I'm going to break it into pennies. So my number's still going to get bigger. I'm still going from something that is bigger, a minute, to something that is smaller, a second. I'm still multiplying. So this time it's still 60, 20 minutes times 60 seconds in every minute. Okay, and this fact is really just the same as 2 times 6. So 2 times 6 is 12, and then I've got 2 zeros here. So in 20 minutes, there would be 1,200 seconds. Okay? Just like 6 times 2 is 12, 60 times 20 is 1,200. Okay, now going the other way. So now I'm walking into the bank with my pennies, and I'm going to walk out with dollars or dimes, a bigger but a smaller number of them. Okay, so if I have 240 seconds, how many minutes can I make? It's kind of like saying how many groups of 60 can I make? Well, if I had 24, all right, we've been dividing. How many groups of 6 can I make? Just 4, 6, 12, 18, 24. It takes 4 sixes to make 24. 6 times 4 is 24. So 24 divided by 6 is 4. Okay. So 240 240 divided by 60 is the same as 24 divided by 6. Okay, these zeros kind of cancel each other out. So it's 4 minutes. And I can check that if I'm not sure. Like if I'm thinking, oh, is it 40? Is it 400? I'm not sure, right? I can draw a picture and make sure that this makes sense. One way I could do this is I could just think, okay, 4 minutes. 4 minutes, each one of them is 60. What's that going to add up to? If I'm right, it should add up to 240. Well, 6, 12, right? But it would really be 120. This is another 120. And then that's going to make 240. So it makes sense. Okay, I can check it another way and make sure that I didn't forget a zero or do something else silly. Okay, I could also just think of this as groups of 10, right? 24, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. 110, 120, 140, 160, 160, 70, 80. Okay, that's 100, 200. Okay, I drew 240 with tens. Okay, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, all the way up to 240. And I did tens because I can also make groups of 60. So look, here's a group of 60. 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 I got 4 groups. So my answer makes sense. Okay, I'm pretty confident that 240 seconds makes 4 minutes. Okay? Now, 120, well, that's half, right? So we might just know it that way. But I can do 120 minutes divided by 60. And when you have a zero inside and outside like that, they cancel each other out. So this is really just 12 divided by 6. It takes 2 sixes to make 12. 6 times 2 is 12. So 12 divided by 6 is 2. Okay, 120 minutes is 2 hours. And I could do the same kind of thing here. Okay, well, is it really 2 hours? Does that make sense? Well, I know an hour is 60 minutes. So here's 60. Here's another 60. That's 2 hours. Yeah, that makes 120. So that makes sense. Okay. Or I could do the tens again. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120. There's 120 in tens. This is a group of 6 or an hour. This is also a group of 6 or another hour. I ended up with 2 hours. Okay? So big to small, like hours to minutes or minutes to seconds, you're going to multiply. Because when you go from a big unit to a smaller unit, it takes more units. When you're doing the opposite thing, when you're taking the little ones and you're going into bigger units, that number is going to shrink down. You divide. Okay?